All right, you guys got it?
Am I in the picture? Okay, there we go.
Yes.
Hey, hello everyone. Today is, we're recording on October 11th. This, obviously, if you can't tell, is the Percussion Halloween episode. You know, we got to do something to keep the kids interested. So, yeah, today's October 11th. It's the Halloween episode, and I'm with my dear colleagues, as usual, Megan Arns.
Hi.
And Megan is a space cat rocket ship thing, which is excellent. Laurel
Chinese
Black.
astronaut.
Hi, guys. I'm Jillian from Family Guy.
Very good. And Ben Charles is yeah, obviously is
Same one.
Okay, cool. And our guest today is a dear friend of mine and a colleague from school. And let me tell you guys a little bit about Bill Shaltis. He's a endorser of Remo, Zildjian, Yamaha, and Grover Pro Percussion. He is the principal percussionist at the Evansville Symphony, as well as the teaching at the University of Evansville in the fairly recent past. He's currently ABD at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and he is principal timpanist at the Boise Symphony, right, Bill?
Boise Philharmonic, yep.
Oh yeah, thank you, the Boise Philharmonic. So welcome to Bill Shaltis. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
And what, Bill? What are you wearing?
I am a Mr. Fusion from the Back to the Future series in honor of the movie. Well, so in Back to the Future 2, he goes into the future on like October 21st or 22nd, 2015. So we're right around that time. So I figured, you know, we should have these. These should be on all the cars. We should have fax machines in the bathrooms. All the things the movies predicted. So. You know.
So yeah, Bill was a nice sport and played along. I told him like, hey, I'm gonna be a clown pirate biker, so you know you got to do something.
We're doing costumes today. This is just what I wore.
Yeah, Ben's just. Yeah, you're right. It's too early for a Halloween episode. Ben's just going to work.
Yeah, this is what I do.
Yeah. Hey, Bill, you just got done playing a really cool marching percussion gig. Can you tell us a little about that?
I did. So I work down at Missouri Southern State University, and one of the perks down there is the guy who runs the department down there has been hiring a drumline that plays with the Kansas City Royals, and so we're getting to play all of the playoff games, and we'll hopefully get to play in the World Series as well. So it's been kind of fun to go and play over the coffin.
Go Cards.
So this is a thing, I guess. Like I didn't really know about. I heard about this first from Mike Eagle, who was our guest episode 2, and who I met some time ago. But is this just me? I didn't know this. Like it's common for drumlines to play in like professional football arenas.
I think I think it's become a lot more common in the recent past. I think there's a lot of drumlines that play for basketball, for football. And for baseball as well. So another drumline is actually involved is the Kansas City Chiefs Rumble, and been doing that for a couple of years too. So we'll play all the home games as well.
And how is finishing up your studies going, Bill? How's
it's going? It's going well. It's eating some time. Yeah. Yeah, it just got ABDs, just passed all the comps, so we're finally in the last stages here of finishing up the dissertation research stuff. So hopefully be out with a degree in December. Thank you.
What's your research on?
So I'm actually going to be producing some video podcasts based on the Solo Timpanist by Vic Firth, and so I'm going to do a podcast for each one of the etudes. And so the first couple of minutes will be describing some things to look out for in each etude, and then the second half of it will be actually performing the etudes with a picture-in-picture camera, so you can see beating spots as well as like the front camera. So
Oh, cool.
Very cool.
yeah, it should be
I
fun.
fully expect each one of those will be in a different costume. Yeah.
Of course. Of course.
So, so this is a nice. Well, okay. So this brings me to something else that Bill does. You have a podcast of your own, Good Beats Percussion, right?
Yep.
And then also you have this new solo timpanist project where you commissioned a bunch of works and you're recording a CD. Yeah.
Eventually, yes. That's right.
That's cool. So that's brilliant because you've had like a warm up to what will be this Vic Firth project now.
Yeah, exactly. I've been doing the Good Beats thing since 2011, so I've been producing that off and on since then. And so it seemed like the natural next step with everything. Sure.
Hey, how would you, and please, you other guys jump in because I'm talking a lot, but Bill, how would you describe Good Beats Percussion as a podcast?
Sure.
How's it different from this podcast? I think I know because I'm wearing this nose, but.
Well, I mean, if you've seen my podcast, I wear some ridiculous outfits as well in it. And basically, it sort of started. I saw online there are certainly some educational podcasts. Like if you go to Big Firth, their educational podcasts are great. But I didn't see so many podcasts that were aimed specifically at music educators. And as I was teaching the ed courses over at UE, the percussion tech courses, it dawned on me I have a lot of freshmen and sophomores that probably 2 or 3 years down the road are not going to remember anything about what we talked about. Very little, unfortunately, because you got to cram so much information, right? And so it kind of started as being aimed towards music educators, things you might need to do on the job, like clearing timpani heads, making smart mallet choices, things like that. And I also wanted to have a little bit more fun with it. So if you've ever seen the series Good Eats by Alton Brown on the Food Network, it's sort of patterned after that. So the camera angles, the different characters, obviously the title, all are sort of an homage to Mr. Brown.
That's awesome.
I think it's oh shoot, never mind. Hey, a question I guess for anyone, Megan, Bill, actually, and from Ben, I'd like to hear from each of you. How did you guys study for your comprehensive exams? What was your
eye
strategy?
is fixed.
My what?
Your eye is fixed.
I know,
It's a
dude. I can't
miracle.
see. I know. I'm trying. Damn it. Yeah, here. Damn it. Can't see anything.
Stay
anyway.
in character.
Yeah. So hey, yeah, Megan, why don't you say something? How did you study for your comps?
I haven't taken my comps yet.
Oh, that's
So,
right. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. That's still to come. How
thanks
do
for
you
reminding me.
Have fun.
A
Have
lot.
fun.
Yeah, but my strategy has advice from others who have taken it at Eastman seem to be reading a lot of the Grout, History of Western Music,
Jesus.
score study. Yeah, I guess ours consists of terms, like a large term identifying section, score identification, and then some essay questions. So. Yeah, a lot of reading the Grout and doing a lot of score study and group study, as well as the theory portion, of course, too.
Megan, I personally think you're gonna eat your comps alive. That's what I think.
Oh my gosh, don't even remember. I can't even. I'm gonna try to take them in February. We'll see what happens.
I think, yeah. Ben,
Maybe.
what did you
You've
do,
already
Ben?
successfully gone to space with a cat and a dog.
That's true.
Looks like a
Maybe
Christmas
they would
present.
just give me an honorary doctorate now that I've been in space.
I think so. I think that's fair.
Yeah,
Ben, what
I
did you
agree.
do?
I'll tell them that you said that, Laurel.
Yes, please do.
What did I do? Actually, I have an interesting story about myself in that I did not miss anything. I did not get anything wrong on my comprehensive exams because University of Miami does not have comprehensive exams, so I didn't have to take them.
Nice.
Oh.
So, but I will say that as I hesitate to use the words like I lucked out on that, but when I looked into graduate programs, I wasn't aware of the differences. And some schools, I won't name any names, but I know one school in particular, a lot of people have deficiency courses they have to take and end up being in school for 12 years. And other schools, it's possible to finish a doctorate in 3 years and kind of get on with life. And I kind of lucked out, so to speak, that I was in a program that had relatively light coursework and could get out pretty quickly.
All right, Bill, you're the authority in this question. Then.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so UMKC, it's sort of similar to what Megan was saying that she needs to do at Eastman. We go through the theory history comps first, and that consists, at least for us, of 8 examples of drop the needle throughout music history, and you had to just talk intelligently about it. And you did have a word bank to sort of pull from, and you can use those words to define. And then the second half of it was taking a piece of music. In our case, it was Petrushka that we had to a week ahead of time, and we had to analyze theoretically, and then again write like a paper based on that within 3 hours. So I think totally what Megan was saying in terms of studying definitely helped getting the Norton anthology and just sitting there with the examples and the scores, because that book does have a lot of the terms that you're going to encounter. And I think also like making playlists on Naxos and Spotify and things like that, just to get your awareness centered.
Yeah, and I would say definitely saving notes from all of like undergraduate courses, especially music theory and music history, really helps people. I did have to take qualifying exams, which aren't as scary, but still, yeah, having like music theory notes helped with that a lot.
Totally.
Do you happen to remember what your 8 drop the needles were, or like approximately what they were?
Well, thankfully we didn't have to know like the actual title or the composer, but we just had to get it within 50 years.
Okay, that's still pretty. 50 years.
That's pretty hard.
Right. Well, I think they were maybe. I think they were a little bit more generous with the medieval music and maybe some of the early Renaissance. You know, but I think by the time you get to the Baroque, they were sticklers on when it had to happen. You had things that sounded like Mozart. You had things that sounded atonal, so you could kind of guess, you know, the best of your abilities.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
So
Hey,
Bill, wait, are you in Missouri now, or are you?
I am in. Sure. Yeah, I actually live in Missouri, and I commute back and forth to Boise for the orchestra cycles. So fly out there once a month, and then come back. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Cool. We're neighbors. I live in Columbia.
That's right.
That's crazy.
Not too far. It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great town. I've enjoyed being here for sure.
Yeah. Cool.
Megan, you're doing a great job holding up your costume, and I'm wondering if you can.
My hand's getting kind of tired.
I bet, and I'm thinking that's why I want to go straight to your segment. Do you want to do your
guys,
segment?
Yeah, sure. I also have a spaceship behind me. Yeah.
God.
Hang on. Can you see it?
I do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I really hope like the dean knocks on my door or something. I really hope, or my chair or something.
Anyway. My segment is very short and to the point today. It's kind of just going back out to big picture, which what my segment is kind of reporting on current events, and I just want to tell people about a really good resource for finding current events, and that is on the PAS webpage. There's always been an events calendar, but it's never been very comprehensive, and it's something I've been working on with Rhythm Scene, but also the PAS intern has really been doing a great job of keeping this calendar up to date. So basically you just go to the pas.org website and you click on events, and there's a really nice page. I don't have it pulled up here, but I do have it on the Rhythm Scene. We just pulled directly from that. Oh my gosh. On Rhythm Scene, but I want to encourage everyone to submit to it, because on that website you can just, there's like a form that you can fill out and put your own events. So it's a great place to advertise recitals, concerts for universities or concerts in the community, seminars, you know, anything really that's going on that's percussion related, to promote your event and also just kind of help us show the diversity of what's going on around the world in percussion. So for example, in November, we've got everything from small concerts such as the Ictus Percussion Concert, which is a group in Brooklyn on November 6th at Roulette in Brooklyn, New York, to PASIC, you know, which is November 11th through 14th. Marching band things, so BOA, Bands of America Grand National Champions, which are the same time as PASIC, but in Indianapolis rather than where PASIC is in San Antonio, Texas this year, the American Music Therapy Association. So kind of really representing all different genres in the United States, but also abroad, the London Drum Show, which is November 21 to 22. So it's getting better, but it's by no means comprehensive and never will be quite comprehensive, but I'd love to see more events go on that page. So if you have percussion events, like I'm sure all of you do, go to pas.org, go to the events tab in the top right corner, and submit your events to that page.
I have a cool story actually to go along with that. I think it's cool to have like a record of these sorts of things. And when I was studying at University of Illinois, there were a bunch of old issues of percussive notes, like paper copies sitting in the percussion studio. So when I was practicing, if I would take a little practice break, I would pull out those old issues and just kind of thumb through them. And I happened to come across Mark Ford's senior recital, and it listed all the repertoire he played. So that was pretty cool.
Oh,
To,
that's
like,
cool.
oh hey, that was my former teacher, and here's his senior recital.
Awesome. Yeah.
Laurel, what was the oldest one we found here? Actually, you can see them
Oh my gosh.
back
Like,
there. Yeah, my predecessor.
Early 70s, I guess?
Yeah, at least the 70s. Yeah, I thought I saw something 60 something.
Yeah.
But we
I
do
also
have, like,
the
Kids
old
magazine, like #1.
the old ads in those are great because it's like so and so says like this is the last marimba I will ever play, and then like now that's someone that plays a different marimba.
Yeah. No, we found an ad that was like the ad of ads.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I don't even remember what company it was, which is probably a good thing. But it had these two girl models on the front, and one of them was wearing one of those really tacky pleather jackets that seem very 80s to us, and she had this short fro curly hair and this jacket, and she's got the lapels, and she's got like the look on, and
It was like sex appeal, like, but
there's
just funny.
this terrible
funny.
logo on the side, but it's also half unzipped, and she's like, play LP percussion.
Oh,
And
man.
it was like, I was like, Casey, you have to see this. It was hilarious.
Majestic is actually about to run an ad with Casey in that outfit.
I'm in. Yeah, this is coming with it though, and my cool biker gloves. Hey, let's see, Laurel, do you have something for us today?
Yeah.
What did you read?
Today I wanted to share with you guys about a really cool experience Casey and I had. Last week we went to an opera workshop masterclass, which seems like it would be completely different than anything we would do in a masterclass. And in some ways it was, but in other ways it was really interesting, and we ended up talking for hours about it afterwards. So I just wanted to mention it here and see what kind of conversation we get going. But the artist who was here was a woman by the name of Ann Baltz, who I think is currently in Arizona, but she's a vocal coach and an accompanist, but more importantly is a director and is the founder and artistic director of this program called Opera Works, which is focused on anyone who's a singer looking to establish more of a performance career. And what's cool about it, it looks like there's nothing, no age restriction, I guess is what I'm trying to say, which is in some ways really, really cool because you're never too old to stop trying to learn how to do things. But this workshop focused very much on how singers can portray character from the stage, and how do you, in a 2-minute audition, maybe 2.5 depending on the excerpt you're singing, show the people that you have the voice for a part, but that also you have the acting ability and just the natural temperament to be the character with the nuance that they might want to see, and how do you show that? And so it was really, really interesting to watch, and as someone who has studied theater and loves theater, I heard her say a lot of things that I heard in theater classes, but never once in musical training, in a lesson, or ensemble or something like that. And so what Casey and I saw was, a student would get up to sing, and so they would introduce themselves and the accompanist and just say the name of the piece, and at certain times she would say, okay, you need to do that again, and they would leave the room, and then they would come back, and she had told the student, be an entitled, obnoxious teenager and introduce yourself that way, which is of course not what you'd want to do in an audition situation. But what it did was it freed up the performers, because then they don't think, okay, I'm in an audition, so I need to act like this, and I need to present myself like this. If you have them do something that is completely off the wall and that everyone knows is wrong, then suddenly you freed up a lot of space in terms of relaxing them for what is appropriate. And then once they got to singing, it was, you know, really interesting what she would have them do. And what she is trained in specifically has to do with using what are called attitude cards. And these just have different emotions on them, whether it's, you know, bashfulness, or I think her favorite one was like saucy. How do you be saucy? Or, you know, angry or disgruntled or dignified or arrogant. You know, each of those are slightly different things, and how do you show that? And then you couple that with certain action cards, which might be something like, you know, scratch your nose, or, you know, scratch your head, or put a fist over your head, and, you know, little things like this that can really help singers free up their bodies so that they can show character on a stage. And what's interesting, and what I think is probably the most important part about what she does, is that as the students would allow themselves to kind of, you know, maybe act a little stupid and do something that seemed not appropriate, their voices would free, and they would have clearer tone, and they would be hitting the right resonating spots all over. So in essence, they sound better because they're focused on, you know, character, on something totally different. And so leaving, you know, Casey and I were talking a lot about where is this for us as instrumentalists, because we don't have to deal with text. And maybe have to isn't the right word. Perhaps we don't get to deal with text a lot of the time, which can be so clear in terms of what is this music trying to say? Well, it's an aria about this thing that just happened. That's what it's trying to say. And there's not quite so much gray area. And so we got into this conversation of, does training like this have a place in the instrumentalist curriculum? Because it seems like what it is in the end is that kind of magical artistic performance musical factor that some people seem to naturally have and are able to access really easily. You know, like Yo-Yo Ma's one of those people. If you ever watch a video of him play, you kind of can't stop watching him because there's a freedom and a fearlessness about it, but there's no ego at the same time. And I think that is, you know, very much at the heart of what Anne does, is trying to find that for, you know, anyone that wants to be a performer. So, Casey, do you want to add in on
well, I guess I'd just like to say, you know, I'd like to say when I'm judging a competition, almost like everyone in the 2 times at Italy, for example, almost all of them I would write, you know, you're playing, but I want you to perform, you know, and it is that, I don't know, it's something there needs to like come out, and yeah, it's not enough just to play.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess the question, I guess, to everyone else is like, how much of that do you do with your students?
I just wanted to say something along with what Casey said. I actually have a policy. I have banned the word play in my percussion studio. You don't play music. You perform, rehearse, practice, record, some other word, but we're not allowed to say we play music here.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
so,
well,
I mean, it's like, you know, it's like, okay, like, I understand, like, it's kind of like, you know, you know, kind of weird that I do that, but I think it's a good point. And one thing that I think a lot is, it's like, I don't care what you do, just do something with this. You know what I mean? Like, you could be totally wrong, but I'd rather have you playing it wrong and exciting rather than wrong because it's just you didn't do anything.
Yeah, make a choice, even if it's wrong. Make a choice.
Well, and then there's people that take it too far and they're like pretending to be into it, and that's like even worse, you know. So I think it's really tough. I mean, it's really tough to tell your students, hey, like right there when you get to that note, like, you know, like do this, and then here do that, and it's like, no, because then it just comes out this ungenuine, fake, phony BS that annoys everybody. So it's got to be like finding the real thing. Bill, what do you think? Because I actually feel like Bill does this. I haven't seen you perform in person for a while, but it's but I think Bill's one of those players who he doesn't make all these faces and do all this dramatic stuff, but I think you really feel the music when you play, or at least you've got me thinking you do.
I don't have the I'm touched by God piano face and like looking back and stuff like that. Yeah.
Like the head nod, you know, you hit the chord and your head goes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. No, I think for timpani playing especially, gesture is a big part of it as well. I mean, there's no reason sometimes for a motion to go a certain way other than that, and that's how the motion completes itself, and that's how that strike feels at that moment. And so for me, I definitely think about, maybe not so much consciously about what I'm looking like, but I am definitely thinking about, each note that I play has a purpose, and what do I do with my body to get that message across, without going over the top and being, funny about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think we're incredibly lucky. We're one of the few, instrumentalists that when we perform, our face is open and most of our body is free and available for expression that comes out. I feel like it's incredibly easy for us to be great performers, perhaps more so than like trombone players that have this giant instrument.
I remember I was talking to someone a long time ago, and they were saying that when you go to like a wind ensemble concert, if you're at an orchestra concert, the whole violin section's moving, but like at a wind ensemble concert, literally the only thing you see on stage is the percussionist and maybe the trombone slides moving, but everything else is just sitting there.
Well, I guess to clarify, it's not that I need to see you do stuff. It's just that like I need to like know you care about what you're playing. And I think a lot of times, and at least in my personal performance, that has to do with understatement.
Yeah.
I mean, you can definitely be too expressive, and like a lot of times music is sad and it's like shallow and it's like humble, and it's like, yeah, you gotta like don't make a line there. Play like that, and keep it like that, and hold that until it goes somewhere. Megan, what do you do? Do you work on this stuff with your students, or?
Yeah, I was actually just thinking that I have found this one of the most frustrating. I don't know about you guys, but one of the most frustrating things to try to teach. And I try different exercises with them, and just to try to get them to come out of their shell sometimes, but. I think that actually drum and bugle corps helped me a lot with that, because you have to, especially being in the front ensemble, you have to be performing. It's just such a big part of the GE score, the general effect. And so that was kind of a turning point for me, was every block, like remembering to do that and actually like consciously trying to do it until it became a natural part of me, And so now I find it hard because it is such a natural thing.
Yeah.
It's hard. I find it hard to teach.
Well,
and it comes very naturally to some people, and to others not at all,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thanks. At this opera workshop, and I think it was a pretty typical opera workshop. I mean, we've seen vocal classes before where they say, like, okay, do it again, but now you have a coffee cup and you need to utilize the coffee cup. I mean, I have seen this thing before, but only in stage things, never for instrumentalists. And it would just, I don't know, it would be so nice if we had some kind of, I don't know, some way of helping each other out with that. And I just really I don't know, I just really like that when a student made a comment, it wasn't immediately like, oh yeah, you were a little flat on that note, and oh yeah, your technique, like here, your fingers like doing that, and like that's not supposed to do that.
Yeah, I've noticed it in studio class by not having students make copies of their music or pass out originals, and just but really focusing on the big picture. A lot of the comments end up being about big picture things like that and about performance, you know.
I was just curious. I was going to say, has anyone read Michael Colgrass's book?
No.
He has, like,
Lessons with Kumi or something? Is that what it's called?
He has two, and I can't remember from that one or his other one. But he has one anecdote in one of his books where he talks about he was working with a piano student that was playing, I think it was like Chopin and Bach. And so he said, like, okay, turn around on the piano bench so there's nothing in front of you and play Bach in the air. And then he said, now play Chopin in the air. And he said, like they looked dramatically different. And then he said, like, turn around, play Bach like you're playing Chopin, or play Chopin like you're playing Bach, and just like the way you feel, like the way you move and feel when you're playing something really, I mean, obviously affects a lot how it sounds. And so for me, when I'm working with someone a lot, it's like, okay, if you're trying to play legato, this doesn't sound that much different on timpani versus, like, you know, this stroke, but you feel like you're playing more legato. It's going to change your phrasing more so than the actual sound that comes out of the drum individually on each note, and like that to me is what's so like critical.
Yeah.
Nice work, Megan.
I can't do it anymore.
You can turn, your shoulders gave out. Hey, Bill, you were gonna say something and then you passed it back to me.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, I've had a lot of working with students like on excerpts, for instance. I've had a lot of experience with students not thinking about their own concept of the excerpt, but just wanting me to say, hey, this is how you play Scheherazade, and like not actually going out and listening to the piece and forming a concept. And I think that's really important to do. You know, that as a student you are forming your own concept, and then also your body motions and how you move will also help to enhance that phrasing. And I think that's sort of the next step with things. I don't know if you guys have had any experience with some of your students wanting the teacher to tell you exactly how to play everything, versus having a voice of yourself. But
yeah, actually, at some point on an earlier episode, there was actually like I think it was me that said like the mark of a great teacher is when the student doesn't play like the teacher.
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that moment where a teacher has told me how to play every single note on a page, and then they go, okay, all right, play through that. So you play through that, and then they say, yeah, but now you don't care about it. Like, there's no emotion in it. It's like, of course there's not any emotion in it. You have told me how to play everything. What do you expect to happen? And
yeah.
Well, and I've been talking with like Will James about this, and I think he makes a good point about people that are taking percussion auditions in particular. Yeah, everybody behind the screen who gets into like the last couple of rounds can play the notes well. It's the ones who can communicate, and there's something visceral about that. And so you can tell the difference between somebody who is really putting all their energy and focus into the moment and you know, thinking about the excerpt in the larger context of the piece versus somebody who just learned the first 8 bars of key G and is playing it sort of on as a robot.
It's great to hear we all agree, and that we're even talking about other people who agree, because I mean, usually when I'm having this conversation in a clump of people, there's someone who is just like, no, come on, man, play the ink. Just play the ink, man. Just do the gig, get your check, and go. You know, and it's like such a job mentality, and you know that when that red light goes on, you just play the ink and you do your job. And it's like, I know you got to do that sometimes, but I don't know if that's, I don't know. I think that's boring.
I feel like that's an I don't even want to, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but it seems like in a recording situation that would be more acceptable than in live performance. Like, I feel like even I have this attitude. I'm going to see someone live. I'm paying to see them live. I want to experience something different than I get on a recording. And just seeing it in person sometimes doesn't do that if it's very bland and they are just playing the notes. And I think it's short-sighted to think that audiences can't tell. I think they can, because, you know, we're all audience members. We know.
Oh, I think they definitely can. I mean, we've probably heard them all tell us that. I mean, my mom is not a trained musician, but I think has a very performance-minded, you know, observational mind. You know, I mean, she can just say like, oh, I don't know. You know, this person was just more into it. I liked that. You know, they want to see the human side of it. I'd like to move to Ben, if that's okay. Ben, do you have something historical to talk about?
Yeah, sure. So I wish that Google could detect my face in this, because I actually wanted to do the birthday hat again, but I can't find my face, so I can't put on the birthday hat. But anyway.
I might be able to put it on you. I'll work on it, buddy.
All right, we'll work on it. Can you Photoshop the birthday hat in?
Is it hot in that thing, Ben?
No, I mean they over air conditioned buildings in Florida, so it's you know, cool enough.
Okay.
But anyway, I wasn't on the last podcast, but so I didn't get to do this on the correct date. But
crap.
today we are
Wait a
celebrating
minute.
Steve Reich's birthday, which was on October 3rd. So it is now October 11th when we're recording this. So we're a few days late. But happy birthday to Steve Reich, who is 79 years old today, or a week ago. So anyway, in particular, I wanted to talk about Steve Reich's percussion music because we could kind of spend all day sitting here talking about Steve Reich. So first things first, from what I understand, it is pronounced Reich, not Reich.
I've heard him say it. That's right.
Yeah, Steve Reich is Jewish, and it's kind of like Schoenberg removed the umlaut from his name. It's kind of an attempt to distance himself from German culture. So if you want to sound intelligent in a room of snooty musicians, say Steve Reich. And also wear a penguin costume when you do it.
Totally. If you want to sound like you're going to have some authority, do it in a penguin outfit.
Yeah. Definitely. So anyway, there's a great clip, a video of Steve Reich talking about classical music that we'll be sure to get in here, where Steve Reich basically talks about how all this super old classical music, like Beethoven and Brahms, he says it's all great music, but I just don't care. It's not music that speaks to me. So he wanted to kind of reinvent classical music when he started composing, and he did. And I found a couple of quotes that are pretty powerful about Steve Reich, and I wish I could tell you who these are by, but I didn't write that down. But someone said, one of a handful of living composers who can legitimately claim to have altered the direction of musical history. And someone else said, maybe considered by general acclamation America's greatest living composer. So pretty big things to say about someone there. I learned about some of his teachers. I did not know that Steve Reich had studied with some of these people. The names that stuck out to me were he studied with Vincent Persichetti, who anyone in the band world is probably familiar with the Persichetti Symphony for Band. He studied with Luciano Berio and Darius Milhaud as well, which I did not know that until I did my research here. And then maybe his most influential teacher was Gideon Awarye, who is a Ghanaian drumming master, and Steve Reich studied with him in Ghana, and this is what really kind of set off his ideas of phasing, which was in a lot of his early music, which we'll talk about briefly. Also, some of his early colleagues at the San Francisco Tape Music Center, where he worked, included Pauline Oliveros and Terry Riley. So again, kind of some big-name composers that Steve Reich was around. I can't see the camera with my beak here.
And I think in one of those interviews, those video interviews, he talks about suggesting to Terry Riley that for in C, someone just hit a C.
Yeah, that was his idea.
Yeah, or at least
was the beautiful girl also his idea?
What? Sorry, Bill?
Was the beautiful girl also his idea? Doesn't it say in the score for that it's got to be played by a beautiful girl?
I didn't know that.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So kind of getting on to some of his music, if anyone's unfamiliar, the idea of phasing means that basically you have two identical things that happen on a loop, and one happens at a slightly higher speed than the other, so they end up kind of out of sync. And then eventually, obviously, if you do that long enough, they kind of come back into play. So this thing I'm doing with my hands right now, that's kind of phasing. And he started this with tape loops. One of his earliest experiments was a piece called Come Out. It was two tape loops on repeat of someone saying, come out to show them. It was actually an excerpt of like a civil rights protest. But anyway, so it's come out to show them, and then eventually the two phase until they're completely opposite of each other in the cycle, and then they slowly get back on together. So that was Come Out. That was in 1966. The next year, in 1967, he started experimenting with the idea of human performers doing this idea of phasing, and he wrote Piano Phase, which can also be transcribed onto marimbas, in which case it's called marimba phase. He's very specific that if you perform it on marimbas, it should be called marimba phase, not piano phase. So anyway, he experimented with a lot of this idea of phasing. His maybe most significant piece in this vein is Drumming, which was kind of the end of his phasing period. This is from 1970 to 1971. Drumming is his really minimalism's first masterpiece, it's been called. It was after his study in Ghana. It's a 90-minute long piece in 4 sections. And the first section is for drums alone, second is for marimbas alone, third section is for glockenspiels alone, and then it ends up tutti, all of those instruments together in the last section. It's for 9 percussionists, 2 or 3 female voices, a whistler, and a piccolo player. So that was kind of the culmination of his phasing period, and I was lucky. I don't know about you guys. I actually got to perform drumming, which is a really cool experience. And then 1972 began a new period for Reich with clapping music, where all of the performers are clapping the same rhythm, and it's like phasing in that it gets out of sync with itself, but he actually uses a different process called mutation, where instead of gradually kind of phasing out of sync, it suddenly jumps to the next point in the cycle. Then following clapping music in a very, very similar vein, kind of more complex, was Music for Pieces of Wood in 1973. Which was I don't think it was actually written for the Nexus Percussion Ensemble, but Nexus was one of the first people to really take this piece and put it into their repertoire and perform it all around the world. There's a great story about, I think it's Bill Kahn had the part that was all just straight quarter notes the whole time. And no, maybe it was Robin Engelman, actually. I can't remember who it was. But anyway, whoever it was, they made it their goal to not blink when they played the piece as a kind of concentration exercise. So anyway, then Steve Reich, kind of in the late 70s and the 80s, became very well known as a composer and kind of took a break from writing for, I'll say, exclusively percussion music, and wrote quite a few very good pieces that we just don't have time to talk about. But then in 1994, he finally returned to writing for percussion music with Nagoya Marimbas, which was written for the grand opening of a concert hall in Nagoya. And that uses, again, that same sort of idea of mutation, which I've also been lucky enough to perform Nagoya Marimbas on more than one occasion. In fact, when Casey came to FAU, we almost threw it together at the last second, but we didn't want to risk anything, so we didn't.
Yeah, we were. We just both realized we hadn't planned on doing it. There was no plan. We said like,
spontaneous.
I know part 1. I know part 2. Let's do it.
Kind of an hour before the recital, then we went, maybe we should not risk this one. And then anyway, his most recent kind of piece for percussion alone has been Mallet Quartet in 2009 for 2 5-octave marimbas, his first time ever writing for 5-octave marimbas, and 2 vibraphones, which is, it's interesting because when I first heard this piece, I was like, oh, it sounds exactly like Steve Reich, but today instead of 1980 or something like that. So that is kind of, in very brief summary, as a celebration of Steve Reich's birthday, his summary of his percussion works. But really, anything by Steve Reich, his more recent 9/11 piece, he has a piece called 2x5, like anything by Steve Reich is just brilliant and amazing. So,
Laurel, you played music for 18, and you played the marimba part, and did you whistle or sing?
What did I do?
You sang,
I was like voice part 2 or something. I ended up not having to play marimba.
Oh, you ended up doing the voice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, which was still cool. It was really neat. Like when we finished the performance, it was just quiet for I don't know how long. It felt like a really long time, but
yeah, and there's well, actually a lot of these pieces there are great recordings of on YouTube. There's a fantastic Music for 18, actually several of those, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, and there's a great Nagoya Marimbas. There's actually one of Kashka playing Nagoya Marimbas.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that. I got to play Nagoya Marimbas in the Rothko Chapel in Houston.
Wow, cool.
With Craig Hauschold, my friend Craig Hauschold from Rice. That was really a neat experience because the Rothko Chapel, of course, because the Rothkos are hanging there, and it's just really
I
cool.
saw Gordon Stout, who we're actually going to have on in a few weeks, just played Nagoya Marimbas this past weekend with Mika Stoltzman.
That's one I don't get tired of. I've seen a lot of drumming. I've seen a lot of pieces of wood. I've seen a lot of clapping music. But But yeah, I don't know. I don't get tired of playing that
I
one.
I actually have a question. Okay, who here has played Nagoya marimbas? Is it just Casey and me?
Bill has.
Okay. There's a video that was just put on Facebook of Gordon Stout playing it, and I had seen this before. He uses 3 mallets because some of the jumps from in the low range on the left hand can get pretty dicey. Have either of you done that, or you just tough it out with 2 mallets?
2. Yeah,
Toughed
I've
it
done
out
2.
with 2. Yeah, I mean, I think playing it with 3, I see why. Yeah, the jumps. Yeah.
When I played it the first time, I had a friend in graduate school, and I wanted to play it with him. And so it's like, hey, let's play Nagoya marimbas. Then I took the easy part and gave him the hard part. Highly recommended to do that, by the way.
Bill, what part do you know?
I played the first part, the one that's not doesn't jump as much.
Oh, cool.
Jump around as much.
All right, I play the jumpy one, so
Yeah.
we can play.
Yeah, that piece I remember being a lot easier to practice on a low A marimba rather than a 5-octave.
Yes.
I think the lowest note is a low A, right?
Yeah.
And so there's less likelihood that you're gonna like hit a G or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you gotta cover it. You know what? And actually,
That's right.
I was listening to something else just today. Oh, I was listening to the Sound Notion podcast, which I've mentioned on the show before, the Sound Notion TV podcast, which is a great composition, new music podcast. They were talking about different models of pianos, and they had mentioned how certain pianos from some time, because they didn't have the standard set of keys, they had like an extended version. They had a cover, and you could cover the extra keys so it didn't throw off your eyesight. Just like on Nagoya marimbas, where it's like when you do play it on a 5, you just want to put a black towel from everything below the A.
What brand is it that makes the pianos that go down to a low C? Is it Bechstein? Or I don't know, whatever brand it is. They actually, I've noticed the lowest notes are like, instead of white keys, they're black keys. So I guess same thing. Like it looks different.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so they even color them different so that pianists still have the same peripheral reference. Yeah.
That's smart. I can't wait until marimbas develop some type of like standardized.
Standardized width.
I know.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
yeah, bar geometry. Like we got to agree on a bar geometry.
I think so. Yeah, I think we do.
Yeah. Well, cool. Anything else about Steve Reich from anybody?
Bill, have you played any of his works other than Nagoya marimbas?
I have. I've played drumming. Played mallet quartet. I programmed on a percussion ensemble concert the music for what was it? I think it's music for percussion, voices, and organ. I'm gonna get that mixed up, but it's one of those mid-period Steve Reich pieces.
I've done that one. Yeah.
That's a cool piece.
It is. That's a cool one.
It was one of those pieces, and I think like a lot of Reich pieces, I took 5 minutes to explain to the audience kind of what's going on with it, so that they wouldn't be like, wow, there's 4 chords in this whole piece, this piece, what's going on here? And it's like, no, this is how this works, and these are the things to listen for, and just kind of guide you through it. And I think Reich for me, especially like music for pieces of wood, was a lot more meaningful once I knew sort of what he was doing with it, rather than just like, okay, it's just people playing claves over and over again.
Yeah.
And his later music, you don't have to do that nearly as much, I don't think, like Mallet Quartet, because it's more of that fast, slow, fast pop vein, the way it's constructed. It works. It's a little bit easier to understand.
And it's melodic, which helps. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Music for pieces of wood is very useful, though, in terms of percussion quintets, because if you had a percussion quintet to go play somewhere, it's a very cool piece that can add length to your concert, but doesn't require like 18, huge instruments or anything like that.
Right.
Or a quartet, and you can add someone to play.
Yeah.
Pull an audience member up.
No.
You play the middle clave part. Just don't stop.
So I want to ask kind of a tough question. Do you guys get tired of some of these pieces because they are programmed a lot?
I will say I don't ever get tired of good pieces of music played well. That's kind of my stipulation. Like, I could hear any of these pieces, or like the Carter timpani pieces or Ray-Bons. Like, I love all of those 1,000 times over, as long as they're played well. The second they're played poorly, it's like, forget it.
Yeah.
I think it's also hard too programming because you want to expose your students to works that are in our canon and works, that are, are in the canon for a reason. They're great pieces of music, and just because you've played them a lot or been exposed to them a lot, your students maybe haven't, So I always have a hard time with that, deciding, having a balance of new music and.
Yeah, it's good to have a mix for sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's like in the band world, every 4 years you're going to have to play the whole suites. I mean, that's going to get cycled all the time. If you're playing in orchestras, you're going to be playing the Beethoven symphonies. That's going to get cycled all the time. And percussion, ionization. If you've got the forces, that should be in part of what you do. A Reich piece like drumming should be part of what you do.
Yeah.
And they're great. They're great pieces.
Yeah, and like the first suite in E flat, I will never get tired of that bass drum part. As long as it's played well, that's so cool.
Well, I think what happens, and of course I totally agree with you, Ben. Like anything done well, yeah, it's going to be. I mean, that means you enjoyed it. It was done well, man. You're going to like it. I think a lot of these pieces, especially the ones you just named, the Reich pieces, and like rebonds, man, they're way harder than like teachers assign them. I think. Yeah. Like, I mean, I can't believe how many times I've gone somewhere and, like, just, like, everyone's playing rebonds. It's like, dude, this is... I guess it goes back to Laurel's topic. It's like, okay, you're, like, just squeezing by playing these notes, but you don't have the maturity and, like, the understanding or really even the facility to actually perform it. It's like, yeah, I guess you're playing it. But I just see that a lot, and I know we want to showcase the best stuff, but I don't know. I feel like while we're waving the flag of like, look, we have real composers writing for us too, we're also kind of drowning the music at the same time.
I feel like for me, like, when I was like maybe a sophomore in college or something like that, I saw a DMA student play Raybon's A. And seeing someone play it, like, obviously, it's not the same experience as playing it yourself, but I think seeing it played well by someone older than you is a lot more valuable experience than suffering through it yourself and not playing it very well. And Morris Palter actually talked about, like, don't play these pieces until you're ready because, like, you're always going to remember the first time you played it, and you can basically ruin a piece for your entire life by learning it when you're not ready for it,
Yeah, well, that's a really good
one thing.
Piece of advice.
Yeah, that's the one thing pedagogically that I hate when teachers assign a piece that's way out of a student's comfort level with really investing and knowing what the piece is about. It's like, you're going to get there, but we got to go through X, Y, and Z to get you to that level.
Halloween cat.
Yeah.
He made appearance. No, I know, and it's tricky because, like, it's as teachers, it's really stimulating for us because it's like, man, I wanna be studying this cool rep with them, right alongside them. So of course it's more interesting for us. So I don't know. It's like it's rolling around in my head a lot. Hey, Bill, how about a question from Facebook? Is that cool?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. Ted Jackson always gives us excellent questions, and
yeah, he's great.
Sounds like let's see. He would like to know, Bill, what is your daily routine to keep your ears and hands in shape?
Awesome. That's a great question. I guess I'll break it down into two parts. So the ear training aspect and then the hand aspect. So for the ear training aspect, at least for me, that's the most important thing with timpani. There's very few other percussion instruments that we play that we have control over the intonation of. Tabla, I guess, is one of them, but there's very few that we play. Most of them tend to be fixed pitch instruments once we step up to the instruments. And so at least for me, I've found that most students aren't very comfortable with their ear, and that's one of the skills that's lacking. So as a daily routine, I think at this point, I don't necessarily have what I would call, quote unquote, a daily routine, but in terms of things to work on ear training, I have students there's a couple of good websites like sitereadingfactory.com where you can kind of select all these different variables and sight sing to that. Pick up a book of Bach chorales, pick up a hymnal, even using like video games like Rock Band and Guitar Hero and singing the parts, because it's giving you information about whether you're singing correctly or not.
I do that all the time.
Right. So you sing Tom Sawyer, and it's like,
Guitar,
yeah. Well, and try to sing like, I'm going to sing like Geddy Lee, and it's going to be really high and annoying and stuff. No, I love Rush. Anyway,
Bill and I like a lot of the same music. Rush and Tool. Yeah.
That's right. Tool is due for a new album, by the way.
I know, dude. I was gonna say, when's that new Tool album coming out, dude?
So I totally encourage all my students to, if they're especially in early music, theory 1 classes, take the ear training seriously. And when I was an undergrad, I had to do things like Mac Gamut. I don't know if any of you guys had to do that program.
No.
It's sitting at a computer where you have to do dictation, melodic harmonic dictation, identify intervals and stuff like that. I think all that stuff is really, really important. And it's, the challenge with timpani is how many people actually own their own set of timpani or have regular access to practice timpani. It's very few people, I think, right? If you're a kid in high school, you can stay after school maybe, but you're probably not going home and practicing your instrument. And so how do you practice that skill, right? And so I think singing is a huge portion of it for me. And my wife would tell you that I sing all the time, and that's, I think, for me, how I practice the ear training aspect of things.
Well, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I had a question related to this. You said you commute like once a month to Iowa?
To Idaho.
Idaho. Yeah. Okay, so for 3 years, I lived in Miami and taught in Boca Raton, which is about an hour commute. And so I was doing that twice a week, and I knew that I should use that commuting time somehow musically, but I don't think I ever quite figured out what I could do. Do you, when you're commuting, obviously you said you're flying, but do you practice somehow on the road? Obviously you can do score study, but what do you do to use that time productively?
Score study?
Yeah.
You can do that when you're driving?
Can't do score study when I'm driving.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I definitely do score study on the plane when I'm flying out there. I'll load up the iPhone with the tracks of what we're doing, get some great recordings, and then sit there with it and figure out, what my part is, how it fits in. Am I the root of the chord, fifth, third, all those sorts of things. So yeah, totally do that. And then I guess the other part of the question, right, was about technique and how to keep your hands warm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is getting into I guess a bit of a thorny area with timpani, just like it is with four mallet marimba in terms of what's the grip to use and all that sort of stuff. And so for me, as long as my hands look the same and are feeling the same and the movement is all the same, that for me is how I work on that, using a mirror just like I would for any other percussion instrument, just to make sure that the technique is looking and sounding the same. My teacher Sal Rabbio taught me there's these many grips that are available to you on timpani, so don't let that be what you should be thinking about. There's a place for French grip, there's a place for German grip, there's a place for American grip.
Sorry, Ben's doing that thing he does in the text feed. Hey, the last question. You talked about your dissertation and involving your podcast is going to have to do with the Vic Firth book. In the meantime, does your podcast release weekly? And tell the good people where they can find it.
Sure. So the video version, which is how it's originally started, is available on my YouTube page, which I think is youtube.com/goodbeatspercussion. And I have all the episodes that are up there right now. And I just recently started making an audio-only version of it, releasing that through iTunes. And so you go on iTunes and just do a search for Good Beats, and you should be able to find it. And yeah, basically trying to do it either weekly or bi-weekly as a release.
Cool.
And if any of you out there end up finding this podcast on iTunes, an audio version, it's going to be because I asked Bill to help me figure out how to do it. Because
anytime, man.
He did offer to help me, and yeah, we got to do that, man.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
well, I've listened to your at Percussion podcast like on my drive down to Joplin, which is like a 2.5-hour drive, and it's like so I'm streaming the video of it, but it's totally works, and it's an enjoyable hour of drive time. So
good.
Kudos to you guys.
Well, thanks. Yeah, and thanks for the help. And yeah, you guys, Good Beats is a really cool, especially like educational podcast. It's great to send young people, especially too. I've noticed.
And I would also say for anybody who's a music educator, or if you're in music education currently, yes. Send me an email. shaltisw@gmail.com if you've got any topics that you think would be relevant for what you do, and I'd be happy to make some podcasts on that as well.
Bill, thanks for joining us in this like ridiculousness and having a Halloween episode with us. Happy Halloween, everybody, and also happy birthday to Steve Reich. Is that right, Ben?
Yes.
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah. Hey, you guys.
The flippers.
So seriously, Ben, did that cost $50?
I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, mine just kind of came together, man. It's like I was thinking like I kind of want to be like a drag queen pirate biker, but this is what we put together instead. So
our dog had one of those cones of shame, so that's what this is based off of.
Oh, nice.
That's great.
Nice. I gotta say though, for throwing it together, it goes to Megan, like all the way, like award, yeah.
5 minutes. 5 minutes. Less than 5 minutes.
Okay, goodness. Okay, yeah.
Thank you,
Later, everybody. Thanks very much, you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.